Realized that we just posted that Tom is involved with another police type show that is on a law enforcement type show, Blue Bloods. He's the chief of police on Blue Bloods. So how about that? It is 8:41 right now. Welcome back to CW Iowa Live. Lou and Michelle Brown joining you in studio right now, and the one and only Michael Jenkins is here to talk about the world of bankruptcy. And the last time that we had a chance to talk, Michael, we were talking about the do's and don'ts of when you go to visit your bankruptcy attorney.
Right, so to kind of summarize last time what we spoke about, and we hit most of the do's, didn't really get to a lot of the don'ts, which we're going to cover today.
Okay, so let's review the do's real quick for those people that may not have joined us last time. We'll just hit the bullet points.
So come to your appointment prepared, know your information, and bring the information to the appointment that we ask you to bring so we have a worthwhile appointment. And when you're working with me, if you're not sure whether or not to do something, call me and ask, don't guess. Try to limit the telephone calls you make to us. We're happy to discuss things on the phone, but try to save up your questions all for one call. And then finally, we did cover one of the don'ts, and that was please don't make your appointment and then get cold feet and back out because you're just afraid to come in or not ready, because it's just a free consultation to gather information. There's no commitment to having to do anything, so really it's a good idea to keep your appointment.
There it is, so don't back down, okay?
I think Tom Petty does a song like that.
I think you're exactly right, yeah. So you make the commitment, go through it. It's going to benefit you in the long run. Okay, so some of the other things that you don't want to do, these are the don'ts.
Well, we got one more do, so I think we'll cover that.
Okay, hit the do's, okay.
Okay, so in your case, you have to go to a legal proceeding. We've talked about that over time, and you'll sit in front of an officer of the court called a bankruptcy trustee. Well, many people's cases are pretty routine, and they just kind of go through, and that's the end of it. But sometimes cases have a little bit more to do, and so the trustee makes certain inquiries about your assets or certain things you've done with your money, and they want follow-up information, so they're going to ask you to provide them certain things. If they ask, you really need to treat it like they're the judge. There is a judge in the case, and if you don't do what the trustee asks you to do in a rather timely fashion, you might be showing up in front of the judge. And showing up in front of the judge in these cases usually isn't a real good thing.
Okay, now you mentioned in a timely fashion. What do you consider in a timely fashion?
Well, I mean, don't wait weeks. I mean, a lot of times there'll be documentation of certain information that the trustee's asked for, or the trustee may ask for bank statements going back 6 months so they can track where certain money's gone if you've received a lump sum of money in the last several months of your before your bankruptcy, a property settlement from a divorce, an inheritance, an injury settlement. If you cashed out a 401k plan and all of a sudden had $20,000 at your disposal 3 months before your bankruptcy, well, they want to make sure it's not buried someplace and that you haven't told the truth. So you really need to get this information. And we're in tax refund season now, and so if the trustee asks you to provide your tax return this coming February or March in anticipation of a large tax refund, you do need to do that when it's asked. And they say don't spend any of the money because some of it may have to come into the bankruptcy court to give to your creditors. And the penalties in that regard, if you spend it, is you lose your bankruptcy. So it's pretty harsh.
Really?
It's gone. And if you don't cooperate with the trustee and they have to repeatedly ask for information, the most severe sanction that can occur is you, again, can lose your bankruptcy for failure to cooperate with the officer of the court.
Right.
If some people just go into ignore mode and just don't do things. Fortunately, my clients haven't fallen into that trap.
Now, can the bankruptcy trustee, can they bail on you too if you don't comply to what they're asking? If they ask you several times and they say, and you're not doing it, can they say, I'm done?
Well, they're assigned to the case, so they're supposed to administer the case. So if they continue to not get the information, they can file a request to the judge to compel the person to come in front of the attorney's office, usually like a deposition, and show up with documents and be interrogated and questioned in front of a court reporter. If they ignored that, I guess the worst case scenario is they could be asked to, show up and explain why they haven't complied, and if they don't, they could lose their bankruptcy.
Got it.
So it's really serious that there's cooperation, because the trustee is an officer of the court, and it's almost an extension of the judge as far as how the case proceeds, and you just have to follow what they ask you to do.
Got it.
And that kind of leads into one of your other don'ts here, which is hiding any sort of information, and the attorneys say you guys hate unexpected surprises.
Yeah,
yes.
So don't hide information for me when we're preparing your case. If we've asked a certain thing, or in our worksheets if it asks you to answer a certain question, you really have to answer them honestly. You can't hold back. You're supposed to talk about your assets and disclose all of them. I know you want to keep everything, and we try to make it so you can keep everything, but we can't protect you and help you protect assets.
Now, what are people doing to hide these from you? Are they creating other accounts, or how are they doing that?
Well, I mean, fortunately, my clients are pretty good and they don't hide things from me, but I've seen this happen, and there are rare occasions where even I don't get the best information from my clients, so it's that they don't tell you about it, or if somebody's transferred an asset, there's questions in the case that ask you point blank, have you transferred an asset in the last 24 months? So I mean, that means cars, that means real estate, anything else of value, and actually even if it's not very valuable, you're still supposed to answer the question honestly. So if you got rid of this old 1983 Ford Escort that had 300,000 miles on it and is worth nothing, the question doesn't ask have you transferred things that are valuable, it says have you transferred anything.
So that would fall into that category.
And that would fall in it. I mean, and there's public records for these things, and the trustees do research before the case. They can check the public records. They have access to the DOT title records, and so they can see if there's been transfers, if there's anything that's in your name that you haven't disclosed. They can check for the entire state of Iowa to see if there's any real estate in your name, or if you've transferred any real estate out of your name. And not just in the last 2 years, you can look back in land records for quite some period of time. So you have to tell us about this information, because again, failure to provide some of this information can result in very harsh penalties. The most severe is prison. If you fail to honestly answer certain things in the bankruptcy, it's a federal crime. It's punishable by a fine, also $500,000, and there's nothing that you have that's worth the penalty.
So don't hide anything.
And you also say, it's important for them to come to you first before they make any financial decisions, before they make the transfers, during this time, right?
Once someone comes to see me, there can be a period of many months before everything finally gets put together. Sometimes it takes my client many, many months for them to get their things together on things. So I may have seen somebody, and then 5 months later they're coming in. Well, don't sell something, don't pay some big debt off, especially your family, in the interim while we were getting things together. Don't sell something without telling us, because things can backfire if we're not aware that you're doing these things. And there's a way these things can be done if you're just in open communication with your attorney, so that they can be done correctly or possibly delayed till after your bankruptcy's filed, so things don't just go haywire in your bankruptcy.
So if you owe a relative, for example, a lot of money, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'll pay them off first before I get the ball rolling here, that's not a good idea.
That's an absolutely horrible idea.
Horrible idea. We've said this before. That's the reason I brought that up, because you mentioned that before.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to use something that's protected money to pay them, you could do it after your bankruptcy, and it's fine. If you do it before your bankruptcy, then they're going to have to give it back to the court to pay your debts, and so they're still unpaid.
Right.
And and it was a waste of your money that would have been protected.
There you go. See that? So again, don't just try to do something that you think is a good thing. Talk to your attorney prior to doing anything.
And not everybody around you.
Yeah, don't talk to your friends, because they're going to give you the wrong information. It's better not to get the wrong information and worry all weekend and have to talk to me and say, my best friend told me this is going to happen if I file bankruptcy. Is that true? And
how many times do you hear that?
Every week.
Every week, yeah.
Their mother, their father, their brother, their best friend, their girlfriend, somebody that they know says, oh, I heard this. And I go, well, who did you hear it from? And they say, and I go, it would be a good idea if you just don't talk to everybody about the situation, because the information they're going to give you is not usually good information. And they didn't go to law school. They don't specialize in bankruptcy. And all you're going to do is get yourself to worrying about things. If you've got something to worry about, I assure you I'll let you know while we're visiting with you in our appointments.
How many people do you think you have been able to help in your business? And how many different clients in your whole run?
Thousands.
Thousands. Okay, now there's a comparison. You have somebody that has thousands of clients, thousands of people that has helped in these situations, or Uncle Ernie who thinks he knows better than anybody else. Who are you going to trust? This guy right here.
We hope.
Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine this is difficult for people to begin with, right? To come into you, and then and because facing all of these, things that they're having to deal. So, what advice do you have to kind of get them over that hump of we just have to deal with it?
Well, and that's why I'm always surprised why they talk to everybody about it. They're usually petrified about even talking about it to me, and they're scared to come in. But boy, once they come in, they're talking to everybody about their business, and I don't really know why they do that.
No, people do want to come in and they want to sit down and talk things through with you, because again, that first appointment you said is an information gathering.
That's right.
Okay.
And there's no strings attached.
Okay. And how do they get a hold of you? Well,
you can reach me on the phone at 255-1855. You can find us on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com, or you can follow us on Facebook.
There you go. Good information again, so I think we covered most of the don'ts. So don't get yourself in a worse situation. Get yourself in a better situation by going to see Michael Jenkins. Wonderful. Good job, man. Thank you so much. Good to see you. It is 8:53 right now, and we will be right back. And when we come back, it'll be time for Totally Serious News next on CW Iowa Live.